Welcome back to Information on Demand 2012 in the Expo. Scott Laningham with Todd Watson. We're joined on the stage right now by Cengiz Satir, who is Program Director for IBM Social Content Management. Welcome, Cengiz.
Thank you.
Also next to me, John Mancini, President of AIIM. AIIM stands for Association for Information and Image Management.
Very good, right.
Thank you, John. Thanks for being here.
Nice to be here.
Well, I know you guys want to talk social. Clearly, you both have some interesting perspectives to bring to the discussion of social and its everywhere nature and its impact on business. There are a lot of layers to that discussion, though, aren't there?
Definitely. One of the things that we're seeing, and I know that John's seeing too, is that social, mobile, local, cloud, all of these technologies are really kind of driving the need for this convergence around social with content management. And one of the things that I try to stress with our customers is that this overwhelming need for them to be able to get a handle on that unstructured information, being able to drive context out of that information. A lot of what we're seeing kind of externally around social tools, social media tools like Facebook, like LinkedIn, and like Twitter are definitely driving kind of the different content consumption trends that we're seeing out there. And it's really expected now in the business world as well. But there needs to be the proper kind of proactive management of that content. And that's what we're doing at IBM. We're really bringing kind of the two of those things together and driving kind of the context that social brings to information and content, but also bringing that responsibility to it as well around the repository of record.
John, what are your
I think there's really two flavors, if you will, of social out there now. The first one is the one that everybody usually thinks of, which is marketing driven and using external social sites basically to promote your brand and to find customers and to interact with people, that kind of thing.
Finding how to go viral.
Right, the Facebooks and LinkedIn's and all of that. There's a second flavor, which I think is really much more interesting in many ways, which is that ultimately those social tools will migrate into the enterprise. And in the same way that email has been essentially the digital dial tone for our organizations for the past 10 or 15 years, ultimately those kinds of social tools and those kinds of experiences will change the way we interact with our peers, change the way we interact with our colleagues, change the way we interact with our customers. And that's, I think, where the real interesting aspects and the connections between social media and content management really occur.
Todd and I talk about the impact this has for roles in organizations, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like there's a lot of culture change that I'm certainly witnessing even inside IBM with this onslaught of social, both internally and externally. Right. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how does that change the nature of roles within the enterprise that are helping organizations step up to this change?
Well, we think that there's a need for what we call T-shaped individuals in organizations, and that's kind of a weird sort of term. But what I mean by that, there's a need for people with deep dive domain expertise, whether it's records management or process management or information management or IT. But at the same time, I think there's a need for those people to have a broad base of experiences so that they understand how the pieces fit together, basically. And we call those people information professionals. Gartner basically believes that the demand for those kinds of information professionals will grow by 50% between.
Do we have education programs in universities today that's fitting that growth need?
There are a lot of interesting things going on the university side. At AIIM, we have a certification that we have launched basically to fulfill a role that we think is going to be similar to what happened in the project management arena 25 years ago, where you had the professionalization of that set of experiences. We think information management feels like that right now, and it's in its early stages, but I think its time has come.
Did the IBM Smart Program does work with the universities around some of this too, doesn't it? Certainly from an analytics standpoint.
Absolutely, and I think what we're seeing is this, as John said, even inside of IBM, this growing trend around information professionals, information workers, what have you, right? And a lot of that's being driven by the fact that purely folks need to be more connected. They need to reach out beyond their immediate work group, right? Having that wherewithal to kind of connect to and provide the context to individuals that are beyond the scope of their normal daily work activities.
I know you guys wanted to talk about the impact on enterprise content management too, in a broader sense with all of this. Want to go into that a little bit, or?
Sure. Go ahead,
I mean, I think when we first started looking at this, it seemed like organizations were going on parallel paths, where they had their old systems of record, which were, had their roots from mainframes to mini computers to the PC era, that whole cluster of technologies. And then there was all this new stuff that we called systems of engagement. And what people did at first was, I think, basically leave their systems of record alone and just do systems of engagement totally separate. They tried to use consumer tools for enterprise purposes. And I think what's happening now is that people are starting to connect those dots. They're starting to understand that content is a continuum. If you look at the history of AIM, it goes back to microfilm. Microfilm to image, to document, to content, to web content, to social content. It's really all part of that question of how we manage unstructured information in the context of business process. And so I think it's driving connections between the social world and the ECM world.
And I'll just add to that. I think one of the things that we're seeing a demand for from our customers is the fact that they really want to be able to leverage these different kinds of social and collaboration tools, but they needs to be in a very extensible way, very open way. In other words, we shouldn't restrict how they're accessing and managing and authoring content. We should be able to have a very open platform that allows them to use all the tools that they would expect to create content, to be able to have more context around tagging and rating of content. But at the end of the day, that content is stored as part of the corporate taxonomy, so that you can leverage that information over and over again, so that you can reuse that information, so that you can apply the proper analytics and records management around it, so that you are capturing all that information, but you're benefiting it in a very big way because you're leveraging these very engaging and interactive tools as part of the whole end-to-end experience.
John?
So I want to hear about this Occupy IT movement, this manifesto that talks about extreme information management. Do we need to be getting our tear gas gear ready to go, or is this not quite so severe?
I guess the origins of it reflects probably my personal experiences of frustration with implementing technology over the years. I've been in the technology space for 25 years, and our inability to harness the revolution that's going on within the consumer space to apply it to the enterprise space. And so I wrote this ebook called Occupy IT. It's at the AIM website of aim.org/OccupyIT. And the notion of extreme information is that both the variety of information that we're managing, as well as the volume of information that we're managing, as well as the velocity at which it comes at us, all those dimensions are headed in a uncontrollable direction. And that if we continue on our current paths, which have really in most organizations been fairly manual as how we deal with that, we will quickly lose control. We'll lose control from a cost perspective in terms of actually getting rid of some things